What if I told you there's a hidden language in our DNA, a mathematical rhythm humming deep inside our cells? Now I know, it sounds like something straight out of science fiction, right? But a fascinating new paper is claiming that the tiny powerhouses of our cells, the mitochondria, are actually organized by a secret numerical code. Let's dive in and see what they found.
So yeah, that's the big question, isn't it? We're going to explore the evidence for this hidden mathematical order. But more importantly, we're going to talk about what it could mean for how we understand health and disease. This is a journey where pure, abstract math crashes right into the blueprint of life itself.
All right, first up, the powerhouse's secret code. To really get this theory, we first need to get to know the star of the show, a really unique and super important piece of our genetic material called mitochondrial DNA.
Okay, so picture this. Inside pretty much every cell in your body, you've got these little engines called mitochondria. They're busy turning your food into energy 24/7. And they have their very own DNA called mtDNA. Now, unlike our regular DNA, it's not a long string, it's a small closed loop, a perfect circle. It comes only from our mothers, and it holds the instructions for 37 absolutely essential genes. And you're going to want to remember that circular shape because it is the key to this whole thing.
And this is where the paper drops a pretty radical idea. It suggests that this looped DNA isn't just a random string of code. Nope. It argues that the way its chemical bases, the T, C, A, and Gs, are arranged follows a really striking pattern. This pattern creates a kind of mathematical harmony, what the author calls numerical resonances.
So what is this mystery pattern? Well, it turns out it might just be one of the most famous mathematical sequences in all of nature.
Yeah, you've definitely seen the Fibonacci sequence before. It's everywhere. From the beautiful spiral of a seashell to the way trees branch out, each number is just the sum of the two that came before it. And this paper is proposing that this exact sequence is the blueprint for how our mtDNA is built.
Okay, so how on earth do they even find these things? It sounds complicated, but here's the basic idea. Imagine that circular mtDNA is like a giant necklace of letters. You start anywhere on the loop, and you count out a really long stretch of it, a length that just happens to be a Fibonacci number. Then, inside that stretch, you only count up the A and C bases. And if that number also happens to be a Fibonacci number, bam, you found what the paper calls a resonance.
Now here's where it gets really cool. When you run this analysis on different genomes, a pattern just jumps out at you. Just look at this graph. See that huge blue spike for Sapiens? That's us, modern humans. It shows this massive spike in resonances of a very specific length. A spike that our ancient cousins, the Neanderthals and Denisovans, just don't have. It's almost like a unique mathematical fingerprint for our species.
Okay, so if this pattern is like a fingerprint for a healthy human genome, that begs a pretty obvious question, right? What happens when that pattern breaks? And this is really the core of the whole study. The researcher dug into hundreds of tiny single-letter mutations in our mtDNA, the kinds that are linked to cancers and other genetic diseases. The big question was, could one tiny error in the code throw this entire mathematical symphony out of tune?
And the answer seems to be a huge yes. The data showed this stunningly consistent trend. When you have a disease-linked mutation, the number of shorter resonances, the ones with smaller sequence lengths, actually goes up. But at the exact same time, the number of those long-range resonances, the ones that are a signature of healthy humans, almost always goes down.
And this chart just lays it all out perfectly. That blue line in the middle? That's the baseline for a healthy genome. On the left, you can see how disease mutations consistently push the number of short resonances up and over that line. And on the right, you see the complete opposite for the long ones. The mutations drag them down way below the healthy baseline. It's a perfect inverse relationship.
Just how consistent is this? I mean, really, the study took the first 100 disease-linked mutations it looked at. The result? The number of shorter resonances went up or stayed the same in 100% of cases. 100%. That's not a fluke. That's a massive signal that something really fundamental is being thrown off balance. But wait, it gets even wilder. The research suggests there might be an even more complex, more fragile layer of mathematical order hiding in our MTD.
So if you have these simple resonances, could there be something bigger, like a master resonance, a point of almost perfect mathematical harmony?
This is what the author calls a super resonance. And you got to think of it like a point where everything just lines up perfectly. It's incredibly rare. We're not just talking about 1 or 2 numbers hitting the Fibonacci sequence. As you can see, this is where the counts of all the different bases, T, G, and their combinations, perfectly match up with consecutive numbers from the sequence.
And this chart just shows you how beautiful that harmony can be. Take a sequence of 6,765 bases. It splits perfectly into its component parts. And every single number you see here, 987, 1,597, 2,584, all the way up, is a consecutive number in the Fibonacci sequence. It's just mathematically perfect.
So how many of these perfect little structures are there? In our entire healthy mitochondrial genome, the paper finds exactly 7. Just 7 of these fragile, hyper-ordered mathematical points. That's our healthy baseline.
And here it is, the big finish. The researcher analyzed 250 different mutations linked to cancers and other diseases. In 100% of those cases, these tiny, single-letter changes caused the number of superresonances to drop. They are so mathematically delicate that a single mutation is almost always enough to shatter them completely.
Okay, so let's take a step back. We've got this beautiful mathematical pattern that seems to define a healthy genome, and disease just wrecks it. What does it all mean for our biology?
Well, the author's big idea is that this isn't just a numbers game. This Fibonacci structure might be absolutely essential for our mitochondria to work properly. And when a mutation messes up this mathematical sweet spot, it could throw the whole energy-producing system out of whack, which could be what leads to disease.
So how could these perfect ratios even be possible physically? This is where the paper gets really out there, in a cool way. One idea is that the mtDNA isn't a simple loop at all, but that it actually twists on itself to form a Mobius strip, a surface that only has one side. It's a pretty wild thought, but that kind of strange geometry could actually explain the perfect mathematical balances they're seeing.
Maybe the best way to wrap your head around this is with this singing wine glass analogy. You know how you can run your wet finger around the rim of a wine glass and get that perfect, pure tone? That's a harmonic resonance. The paper suggests that these mathematical resonances in our mDNA might be something similar, a kind of physical, harmonic buzz that allows the mitochondria and the rest of the cell to communicate.
And that leaves us with this huge, kind of mind-blowing thought. Look, this is obviously early days and very speculative. But if it's true, if our genome is literally humming with a deep mathematical harmony, it opens up a whole new way of thinking about medicine. What if we could learn to listen for that biological song? And more importantly, what if we could learn how to retune it when a mutation causes it to go silent?